that there's a race for president of the United States. The current sitting president is running for re-election. 3.5 months from the election, he decides not to run. The sitting vice president then takes the mantle, running against a former president of the United States who had been running for 10 years with 107 days.
People didn't used to get sick of the candidates because you barely ever saw them unless you happened to be standing at the back end of a train. But now we never stop seeing them. The winner in modern elections comes down to who we're less tired of.
Bill Maher strongly criticized Kamala Harris in a way that felt dramatic and entertaining, almost like a 4th of July show. He said that Harris often seems confused and out of touch with ordinary people, and that she still struggles to connect with her audience. Maher's comments were sharp, bold, and at times very funny. It was the kind of criticism that grabs attention and keeps people watching from start to finish.
Joe Biden was still hanging on to be the candidate. Many of the pundits said that to switch him out this late would cause chaos. Yeah, that was never my position. And indeed, what happened was Kamala Harris said, "Oh, look, I guess it's my turn." And the next day, a grateful nation handed her $500 million. The only reason we stay stuck in permanent campaign mode is money. It's estimated this year that $16 billion will be spent on political ads. It's time we admit that the endless campaign exists only to enrich advertisers, political consultants, and what's left of the news media.
The Democratic Party did not fully think things through before choosing Kamala Harris as their 2024 nominee. The problems actually started much earlier. Joe Biden did not step aside at the right time, and party leaders continued to support him until his poor debate performance forced them into a difficult situation. When Harris was brought in as the replacement, the party tried to fix the situation by giving her a huge amount of campaign money. They hoped that strong funding would help stabilize everything. However, the money did not solve the real problems. It did not improve her message, it did not reduce voter concerns, and it did not rebuild trust. In the end, it felt like a rushed decision without a clear plan for success.
The fact that we're just getting to know Kamala isn't bad, it's great. Great for her, great for the country. People didn't used to get sick of the candidates because you barely ever saw them unless you happened to be standing at the back end of a train. But now we never stop seeing them. The winner in modern elections comes down to who we're less tired of. They're just constantly on us. TV, radio, the mail, on our phones, texting. Hey, Bill, Tim Walz here. You up? They're everywhere all the time. Jesus Christ, fuck off. Let mommy put her purse down.
In this part, Maher responds to people who defend Kamala Harris by saying she did not have enough time to introduce herself to voters because her campaign was short. However, Maher completely disagrees with this idea, and many others might feel the same way. Harris had around $500 million to spend, which is a very large amount of money for any campaign. She used it for constant advertisements, celebrity support, and carefully planned public appearances. Famous celebrities shared her message across social media, making sure people saw her everywhere. The problem was not that people didn't see her. In fact, people may have seen too much of her. According to Maher, voters became tired of her before the election even happened.
Vice President Harris, in her new book, said it was, quote, recklessness for former President Biden's allies to leave the decision about running for re-election up to him and his family. Do you agree with her? Was it recklessness?
Look, I wasn't there, Kristen, on this, and I think the president, again, got us through COVID, ushered us through, brought the economy back from the edge. I think there's questions about this, and I want to be very clear. On me talking about the MRI, ageism is a real thing. Ableism is a real thing that we need to be careful of with people, and I think Donald Trump made a cottage industry out of attacking Joe Biden's competency, and it seemed like that got reported a lot.
Once again, there was a situation where a simple question did not get a simple answer. Tim Walz avoided answering directly and instead spoke in a way that seemed unclear and indirect. Kamala Harris had already shared her opinion. She blamed Joe Biden's close advisors and family for allowing him to stay in the race for too long. She believed they should have stepped in earlier and prevented the problems that followed. However, instead of discussing this issue clearly, Tim Walz tried to shift the blame toward Donald Trump. This made it seem like he was avoiding the real problem inside the Democratic Party and choosing an easier target to criticize.
Whether that decision should have been made sooner, history will determine that. What I do know is that going forward, we need somebody in office who's actually going to tackle the things Americans need, whether it's about costs or whether it's about our national security needs and honoring those with our allies. And I think maybe there's a lesson to be learned from what happened with President Biden. If that's the case, it should certainly be applied right now to this president who is putting Americans at risk, is reckless, and is not doing what he's asked to do.
This also showed how often the conversation returns to Donald Trump, even when the topic is something else. It seems difficult for some people to leave him out of discussions. At the same time, Tim Walz made a small but important comment. While criticizing Trump, he also hinted that Joe Biden made mistakes. When he said there was a lesson to learn from Biden, it sounded more like criticism than praise. Because of this, even while trying to change the subject, Walz indirectly supported the idea that Biden's decisions created problems for the party.
Former Vice President Kamala Harris has left the door open to potentially run for office again. Do you still think she's the strongest person to run for president in 2028?
Well, I'm glad she's out there, and I'm glad a whole lot of other people are out there, because I think Donald Trump sucks up so much oxygen. We need to have the Democratic Party out on the field, the broad, inclusive Democratic Party, talking about making life more affordable, talking about protecting freedoms, and I think Kamala Harris does a wonderful job with that. If she chooses to run, that betters all of us. We will have the process. We'll go through. I'm sure there'll be a lot of folks throw their hat into the ring, but that's good, and we need to make sure that we're providing the alternative that America's asking for.
It also helps explain why Kamala Harris chose Tim Walz as her running mate. Like her, he often avoids giving clear and direct answers. When he was asked if Harris would be a strong candidate in 2028, he did not give a simple yes or no. This kind of hesitation can reveal a lot. It may mean he is unsure about her future, or that he wants to keep his options open for someone else. Many people believe that Harris's performance in 2024 hurt her reputation, and Walz likely understands this. His answer sounded less like careful thinking and more like a quiet sign that the party may already be looking ahead to other leaders.
And I think she had a message last year that I'm proud of. I think, did it break through enough? Obviously not, but it's still a message that works, making sure that America is affordable for all, people feel included, and we tackle the toughest problems.
This connects to what Maher has been saying for a long time. Many Americans felt that Kamala Harris's message did not relate to their real-life experiences. She had many chances to speak to the public through interviews, events, and national appearances. However, instead of being clear and direct, her statements were often confusing and difficult to understand. Good communication is not just about talking, it is about making people feel understood. Harris sometimes sounded too scripted or unclear, and over time, people stopped paying attention. When voters cannot understand a message, they eventually lose interest.
The primary reason do you think that you lost?
There are many factors, I think, that played into the outcome of that election. But I think probably one of the biggest in my mind is we just didn't have enough time.
You didn't have enough
time. We didn't have enough time.
Oh, yeah. Well, you didn't.
And, one of the reasons I wrote the book is this is unprecedented. Think about this.
Yeah.
That there's a race for president of the United States. The current sitting president is running for re-election. 3.5 months from the election, he decides not to run. The sitting vice president then takes the mantle, running against a former president of the United States who had been running for 10 years with 107 days.
Some critics believe that Kamala Harris changes her message depending on the situation to make her campaign look stronger. For example, she said Donald Trump had an advantage because he was a former president. However, she herself was the sitting vice president, which is also a strong position. Critics also point out that Democrats spent years focusing on Trump and building political arguments around him. Because of this, her claim about unfair advantage does not seem fully consistent. To many people, it looks like she is shifting blame instead of accepting responsibility for what went wrong in her campaign.
Piece of what is unprecedented and a bit historical about that race, it is the closest presidential race in the 21st century in terms of the outcome.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, say that again, because he likes to say over and over again he's got a mandate.
And that's part of why I wrote this book, because history will talk about this race. It is part of American history. And it was important to me that when history is written, that my voice be present about what that experience is.
At times, it can be confusing to understand why audiences applaud, because Harris's speeches often did not feel clear or deeply meaningful to many listeners. On the other hand, Trump's 2024 victory was not only about strong speeches but also about results. He won 312 electoral votes compared to Harris's 226 and also secured the popular vote. His victory showed changes in voter behavior, including support from different groups and concern over issues like inflation and the cost of living. Many voters were unhappy with the current situation and wanted change. In the end, Harris struggled to clearly communicate and connect with voters, while Trump used public frustration to his advantage and won the election. His success reflected a larger shift in public opinion, and it is something that cannot easily be changed or explained away after the fact.